Welcome to our study in the book of Daniel. I'm Dick Baker, your teacher. And today, before we start chapter 1, we're going to take a short visit into some insights into Babylon. We're actually going to go back to ancient Babylon and Hammurabi, as well as some archaeological finds and some information that has been dug up over the years. Babylon was one of the splendid cities in the ancient world. This whole area is the palace area, not just the high, what we'd start to say the ziggurat. All the way around is the palace area. The literal meaning of the word Babylon is confusion. It was the last name given to Babel, which was the capital city of Babylonian Mesopotamia. And this is, again, ancient Babylon we're talking about. And keep in mind where the word confusion and Babel came from was God confounded or confused the languages when they were building the Tower of Babel. This is an artist's rendition of the actual color scheme that the palace and very important buildings these colors were used in this kind of architecture. And so as archaeologists dig, they find the beginnings of walls, and they just pretty well follow the wall as far as they can, and then go deeper there, and then they try to fill in what was inside of the wall. They find a road, or it looks like just a gutter of some kind somewhere. They will follow that or start to hit a building. They stick with it. So this definitely is architecture of that time. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon were amongst the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Those spectacular gardens were actually created for a homesick king's wife. She yearned for the garden plants of her motherland. Unfortunately, the gardens were all ruined right after the earthquakes in the 2nd century before Christ. So this is an architect's rendition, a computer architect, of the front view of the palace. And if you look at it closely, it almost looks like it was made out of Legos. But that's the computer, and you can figure that out pretty easily. They've taken that which they have and what they know, and then they build it up. They build it from there. And again, keep in mind the colors are very befitting of the time. Hammurabi lived from 810 to 750 BC. He was their 6th king in ancient Babylon. And in that regard, he was the 6th king. He was number 6 in line, which goes way back. The Hammurabi Code, he wrote a code, and it comprises of 282 written laws and regulations, basically about civilization, how to have one. And it included agriculture, marriage, industries, governance, land, properties, and other things of how to have a structured civilization. He was their great lawgiver. Some of his writings that they have dug up. During Hammurabi's life, the first thing I would mention, 8 miles while he was living 800 miles away, as the camel flies, and my class laughed of that. A promised child was born to a great herdsman. That child was named Isaac, and he was born to Abraham and Sarah in the promised land. So Hammurabi lived at the same time as Abraham, and Sarah, and Isaac. He also lived, another contemporary was Job, that we know about in the Bible. The major motto of Hammurabi's code was an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, but he said it this way, a tooth for a tooth and an eye for an eye. We're the ones that reversed it. The Code of Hammurabi, even today, is used as the foundation of several laws and regulations around the world. The Babylonian military is very powerful. It's comprised of very much well-trained soldiers. An administrative unit of seniors or senior citizens from the upper class people served as judges, and they were also known as the Amilu. So they would find wise senior citizens that they mostly judged, and that's my next point, they mostly judged by the Code of Hammurabi. The Babylonians were very good in record keeping. They used to record all the verdicts from the judges for future references. However, the empire was a very liberal place for women. Liberal in the sense that, unlike other societies, the Babylonian culture allowed their women to be priests, and also women were even free to sell wine and to set up their very own business. They can, in today's culture, it would be called they could incorporate their own business and go at it. A Babylonian woman could ask her husband to support her for life. She could also ask for a dowry from her father. In addition, she had rights to the properties of her husband after his death. So when the husband died, she got everything, as it is today in our culture, most of the time. The Babylonian history shows that they worshiped Sumerian gods and goddesses. Marduk was their greatest god. We'll see more about that as we get into Daniel itself in chapter 1. Here's Marduk. The regular attacks from the Kassites, followed closely by the Hittites, resulted in the decline of ancient Babylonia. Here's some of the etchings and the pictures and the storytelling in stone. The Babylonians were the first people to bring in the concept of a sales contract. They also introduced the idea of signing it. Art was big in this culture, as it is in many, especially in the ancient times. They introduced jewelry into the world. This is some of the architecture that I mentioned. Look at the color schemes again that they've used. Look at the soldiers. Even the soldiers had bracelets on. Headband, it looks like they have an earring, golden earring. They made use of their precious gems and metals to design jewelry, so they were very good at doing so. Here are things that have been dug up, earrings, necklaces. These are in museums. And as I close, I say this: the greatest single individual to impact the Babylonian civilization that we will be looking at in the book of Daniel was Daniel himself. And we'll see what God used one man to do through two ancient empires. Just incredible things. And our last slide is, this is the designated place, the burial place of where Daniel has had his remains at rest. I want to thank you for watching, and this is just a prelude, something to just give you some insight into the nation of Babylon that we're going to be looking at, even though we're 1,300 years now away from Hammurabi. A lot of those diggings were from the time of Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar and throughout the empire. So I will say thank you again, and God bless you, and I will see you for the first chapter of Daniel. It's coming up next.